Hello and welcome to the Bears and Beers podcast. Good evening. We are the unofficial podcast of the Sydney Bears Australian Ice Hockey League team. It's good to have you with us. We are recording on Tuesday evening, and whenever you're listening, whether it's in the morning, in the afternoon, or the evening, we welcome you and thank you. My name is Gordon Goodenough. I am joined here by my co-hosts Nathan Graham and Matt Wiggins. Nathan, how are you going this evening?
Really well, really well. Feeling great. Good start to the week. Good weekend of hockey, and I've been looking forward to joining you guys.
And Matt, your old mentee Brian Burke just got elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame. There is a multiverse in which he does not meet you and is not elected into the Hockey Hall of Fame. How are you going this evening, Matt?
One of the greatest moments of my life was running into Mr. Burke, as I called him, outside of Real Sports Bar in Toronto. We had a quick chat about Australia. He said he'd never been. I told him he should come. It was full of young and beautiful people, rather like ourselves. He didn't even crack a smile. And if you do check my Instagram, that is the face of a very angry old man. Not me, him. But yeah, great to be back in Sydney. I was in Perth last week. Just a very quick shout out. I ran into the Perth Thunder boys in the Virgin Lounge. They were on their way to Canberra. Had a super quick chat with Drew Robson and Riley Langill. Super lads, said they'd heard about the podcast. How you going, boys? Nice to have you along with us.
Yeah, Chris Langill, Riley's dad. I mentioned before. I know him. He's the commentator for the Perth Thunder. Great guy and really nice family. So yeah, well done on meeting them and. Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. We had entering into the weekend, the Sydney Bears were in sixth place, and we had two big games against teams above us, the Central Coast Rhinos and the Sydney Ice Dogs. Sydney Ice Dogs entering the weekend were actually top of the league, tied with the Perth Thunder in points percentage. So a big derby, the Wilson Cup on the line. But let's start by recapping the non-Bears games, and Nathan, you're going to take us through that for us.
Kicking off his Saturday games, we had in a tight one, Mustangs came back and nearly chased it down against the Lightning up at Boondall. Lightning eventually taking that 1-7-6. In the Hunter, North Stars 6 over the Rhinos 4. The Thunder went down to the Brave at the AIS. Score there, Brave 5, Thunder 1. And the Adelaide Adrenaline picked up their first regulation win of the season. And incredibly, their first win over the Melbourne Ice in 11 years in a tight one, 3-2 in Adelaide. Over to the Sunday games, Thunder, they turned it around on the Sunday with an 8-4 win against the Brave. The Mustangs 10 over the Lightning 6. Impressively, Brody Crane 7 points in that game. North Stars over the Dogs 6-3 at Macquarie. And the Melbourne Ice turned the tables on the Adrenaline 7-3 down in Adelaide.
Yeah, some big results, and we had some friendly results that went the way of the Sydney Bears. If you're looking at the standings, the Mustangs splitting the weekend certainly helped us. Canberra Brave, who were tied with us entering the weekend, splitting the weekend, that helped us. But let's get into the Sydney Derby on the Saturday. Now, I'm going to say a statement that may be a little controversial, and feel free to push back. I feel like this Sydney Derby was the most significant one in terms of importance that we've had since 2008. And my reasoning for that is that 2008 was the last time that both the Sydney Bears and the Sydney Ice Dogs made finals. This one felt pretty huge. We've only met had a derby in finals once. That was in 2004 when the Ice Dogs beat the Bears 5-4 on their way to a good old cup title. It felt huge, and this late in the season, the Ice Dogs having won the first two, just one more win needed to secure the Wilson Cup for the first time since 2018. Is that a statement that you guys agree with, or I certainly encourage some pushback?
Oh, look, I certainly think it's up there. I think when I think of the game, I probably think more so in the context of our season. But I think that narrative you've just unfolded there, yeah, look, I think you could definitely build a case to support that. Not sure what you think, Matt.
Yeah, it was a huge game. I know none of us are neutrals, but if we had have been, would have been a cracking game to watch. So yeah, from a historical standpoint, going to defer to your superior knowledge, Gordy, but I thought it was a great game of hockey and fabulous advert for the game.
And we had on the podcast last week, we talked about how Nick Seitz had since he had arrived, had gotten the Bears off to quick starts, and he did it again. 63 seconds required for the first goal this time. He ends up getting a hat trick. Lucas Herman gets a 5-point game. The Bears at one stage lead 5-1. The Ice Dogs come back and really it felt pretty nerve-wracking at that stage when it was 5-4. Thomas Lander breaks a 3-game pointless streak, the longest pointless streak that he's had since 2018, and Plymley carries the team for the win. Like, what more drama could you possibly want from a Battle of Sydney?
Gordy, we were all in a group chat while the game was going on. There was some fairly colourful language and squeaky bums, I think, at various stages of the third. So, yeah, cracker.
Yeah, the third period, obviously, it's probably not the sequence of the game that we want to focus on here, but that third was definitely nervy, particularly off the back of the first two periods where I thought perhaps at the start of the game the Dogs probably had a couple of good looks. I think Hayden made a couple of pretty sharp stops on some good looks early, but beyond that I thought we were really moving our feet throughout rotation. We had them on the back foot early. Perhaps one of the best starts to a game that we've had this season. And obviously, on last week's pod, Gordo, you covered some stats around our starts, but certainly got out of the gate pretty early, and I thought we were quite dominant throughout that first period, not just on the scoreboard, but just from a run of play perspective. And that really continued throughout the second. Again, skating well. The active D, I think, was a real standout. And from a chance creation perspective, really strong. I think by the end of the game we had, I think the official count, 56 shots. And I dare say quite a percentage of those were relatively strong looks. And you could potentially argue that we probably should have put a few more past Burrows, who had a really good night in net. Maybe a little bit earlier, but I'll let you guys obviously expand on the third.
We just talked about Nick scoring inside of 63 seconds, but the first line on my game notes were 3 enormous saves from Plymley right before Nick scored his first goal. So, Ice Dogs got off to a fast start as well. We just had a boy, shut in the door and keeping the puck out of the net as much as he'd done the week before against the Mustangs. So, again, good on you, Hayden. Could have been a very different start to the game if any one of those 3 chances had gone in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think looking back at the second Sydney derby, I don't know if you guys remember that one, but we dominated the first 10 minutes and we couldn't find a way past Ryan Burrows. And then, a sharp angled shot comes through and it takes a deflection off a stick and gets through us and suddenly we're scrambling and we gave up 5 in a row. in that second Sydney derby and ended up losing 7-3. And I think that was the scoreline. I know you mentioned last week, Nathan. Certainly wasn't a reflection of the game flow. It was just the Ice Dogs got bounces at important opportunities, and we didn't get those bounces that went our way. And it felt like getting that big start. 3 big saves from Plymley, big goal from Nick Zeitz, and I thought the third goal that Nick Zeitz scored, the hat-trick goal from the circle, sharp-angled shot, beat Burrows clean. He was out to challenge. I think that's something we haven't really seen much of this season. Someone that can beat a goaltender, legitimate top 3 in the league as far as save percentage, beat him clean with no screen from that distance.
Yeah, Nick was a threat every single time he put a skate blade on the ice. I think, again, we talked last week about that top line and how effective they've been, but it almost seems somewhat obscene to say this, but Nick took his game to another level this weekend. And then, what's he scored now? 12 goals in 4 games. Even the most elementary mathematicians can work out that that's a hat-trick a game, right? I mean, I know this isn't going to carry on forever, but his speed on the ice, the way he challenged defenders, that wrist shot has got some juice, hasn't it? And he must be scaring the bejesus out of teams every time him, Herms and Goose step on the ice, I would have thought.
Matt, give me a reason why it can't continue.
Wow.
Again, I know that's a full plate of bias there, but let's be real, these numbers aren't going to continue most likely, but he is going to be a threat consistently game by game here. What you said there, Gordy, an ability to beat goaltenders from all over the ozone clean. That's how many guys in the league have that ability. You could probably argue there might only be a small handful potentially. So before we turn this into the Nick Sites podcast, which we could definitely be trending towards, it's pretty easy at the moment with these statistical lines and the way that he's looking in games, that's for sure.
I just can't. I'm shaping an email up to my CFO to see if I can come up with a player sponsorship, because whoever sponsors Nick for the rest of the season is going to have their name announced a lot.
Yes. I might tell Nick tomorrow that I'll write my own proposal to be his agent, and you can pay us a goal bonus. And we'll just send you broke.
Yep. It'll have to go in with your applications to be Brady Kachuk's agent and Darren Radish's agent. It's all happening. Just a quick one. We did have a really lovely comment from I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly, Angelica Fran, who said, just my newbie thoughts. Very exciting game versus the Ice Dogs. We were doing so well. Then the third period came along, and suddenly the Ice Dogs were twice as fast and ferocious than we'd seen them all game. I felt physically ill during that onslaught, but Bears were awesome. Were not demoralised. They managed to drive them out and turn it around, even score again. Such a thrill. So thank you for your comment. I think that's a really good summation of my emotions watching that game for sure.
Just on that winning goal, though, chaps, Tommy Lander. There were some pretty goals scored in that game. Tommy Lander causing havoc in the crease, real meat and potatoes goal, breaks a multi-game scoring drought. Life in the old dog yet. On you, Tommy.
Absolutely. And sorry, Gordon, what was the stat that you mentioned earlier in the pod?
That's a 3-game pointless streak for Thomas Lander. I don't advertise that, but
No.
I had to go back all the way back to 2018 to find when he last went 3 games without a point. And when you've been in the league since 2007, and that's pretty much, I think, 2018 and now, that's the only times when he's gone 3 games without scoring a point, is just obscene consistency from Thomas Lander.
we're so accustomed to Tommy just popping up, contributing game on game, almost, in the way of a lock. 3 games, it's not an extended streak, but for Lander it is. So, good stats there again from the king of stats.
The Dogs showed us, flex their muscles. They showed us they could score goals quickly and in bunches. I did make a note. I thought Riser called a very, very smart timeout in the third. Now, admittedly, the Dogs did score another one afterwards, but I noticed, a change in the way we approached the final stages of that game, and I'm certain that was a message that Riser gave the boys during that timeout. So, often the coaching contribution goes completely unnoticed because everybody's bedazzled by, the boys on the ice. But I thought smart move from Riser, clearly got a message across. He didn't stop the bleeding fully, but he stemmed it, and then he reset the group, and we certainly approached the sort of last 5 minutes of that game in a very different manner than we had approached the previous 5 or 10 minutes. So hats off to Riser for a smart veteran move there.
Yeah, and Hayden Plymley did enough to gut it out for the win, and that's in 5 starts. That's his 4th win, so he's been very, very useful. I don't think entering in the season anyone had Hayden Plymley being a really vital part of this team on their bingo card. I don't think most of us had heard of Hayden Plymley, but circumstances have happened. He's come in. He's grabbed the opportunity that he's had, and he's been really, really useful for the Bears.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about you guys, but when I look back on that game, I do wonder. Earlier in the season, I'm not necessarily convinced that we walk away with a win in that game. The way that it transpired and the adversity in the third period, that came. Credit to the Dogs, they came hard and fast. And I think off the back of what you said before, Matt, they regrouped, they found a way to win. We were coasting there for a while, but I'm not convinced necessarily that we walk away from a win if that game was conducted earlier in the season. So I think we probably take a positive out of that as well.
Yeah. Well, I remember that first game. We had a handful of breakaway opportunities, and couldn't find a way past. It was Murakami in net in the season opener, and couldn't find a way past him. And we had gave up goals at awkward times. Right before the end of the second period. It was tough. But yeah, we certainly have got some goal scoring players and players who are on hot streaks, and that carried over into the Rhinos game. And we had, as spoiler alert, Nick Zeitz took his goal total from 9 to 12. Lucas Herman had a 5-point game, which was a season high points for him and matches an AIHL career high. He had a 5-point game in 2024. It felt like at times a game where we might get goalied. And again, I think we've lost those games before, and we gutted out a win in this one. What was the difference, do you think, in getting the result?
First and foremost, a massive shout out to Armand Oberoi in this game. I'm not sure if he's reported to work yet this week, but what a weekend out for him in terms of the volume of shots that he saw, and he made quite a volume of miraculous stops. You look at some of these shot totals from the game. We were 19 shots through 10 minutes. 18 of those were even strength shots. This game could have been over in the first period potentially. Again, hot start, very similar theme to that of Saturday. I thought we were skating really well throughout that first period, carried that momentum through. Nick and that top line again, looking dangerous, but I really thought that we had some great looks through the middle six as well against the Rhinos. And that big the big Bouchard bomb through traffic was certainly somewhat against the run of play. And when that went in, I thought, come on, guys, we can't let, sort of that single moment sort of rattle us. And really it didn't. They were probably good value for those 2 goals, but at the end of the day, it was against the run of play. We had 33 shots through the first period. And I thought really throughout this game we were more than dominant. I'd actually go as far as saying this was by far our most complete performance of the year. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but not just from a statistical perspective. Like the shot totals look great. They look sexy. But just the way that we broke out, the way we moved the puck, thought we were very clean and efficient with the way we moved the puck. There's going to be someone out there a lot smarter than me that would have been counting high danger, but I dare say that again would have been a significant percentage of those 65 shots on goal would have been very good looks.
I had 3 things written in my game notes. Complete dominance from the Bears, period. This is period 1. Second point was Oberoi with a number of exclamation marks behind that. Third one was unbelievable assist from Logan Brody.
Absolutely.
So Finn's goal with 9 seconds left in the first, huge. Because if we'd have gone in behind at the end of the first, having dominated them 33 shots to 10, I think it was, that would have been a gross miscarriage of justice. So, yeah, Finn with his 5th, great assist from Logan. Louis Olive picked up the second apple, so very timely goal. We talked about goals at the start of the period. There was a big one right at the end for us.
Agreed. And I actually just noticed, Matt, as I refer to my notes for the first time, I too have that same data point. Logan Brody, great patience at the end of the period there, after sustained pressure by us as well. Logan loves to shoot it. He's got some really good offensive instincts, but seeing him execute that play so well, heads up, a lot of patience and composure to find the pass. I agree, Matt. That play had some real polish to it.
Another, let's give some shout outs to some assist kings. Kenshin Hayashi.
Yeah, wow.
The assist that he gave, I think it was Nick Seitz. The setup, the skating, the edge work to get into the offensive zone and to have the presence of mind to know where Seitz was. That felt like a pretty big moment in the game too.
Massive. Kenny has a really, it's a secret weapon, his feet. When his feet are moving, he can really unlock opportunities, and I thought that passage of play was a perfect sort of representation of that, where he just opened up some space, took that space well, and fed Nick for an absolute beauty. But that was definitely just a small moment where you could just see a certain skill set, set the table for a really, really good opportunity. So, I too had that noted.
And Nathan, I'm gonna get you to double up on this one. Anthony Kimlin, he sets the new appearance record for goaltenders in the AIHL with 191 appearances. Overtakes Stuart Denman, and he gets the win as well over Ananda Oberoi. Taking not just this performance, but what he's meant to the club. What can you say about Anthony Kimlin and his accomplishment?
Well, look, I think firstly, Kimmer, he's synonymous with our club and vice versa. When I sat in the stands as a fan, sort of that 17-18 period into 19 when we won the cup, he was beyond dominant during those years. And then when I started to become acquainted with other teams and other personnel around the league, I think one of the earliest things that I learnt was just the magnitude of, I guess, the level of respect that he carries around the league. players, administrators, staff, and that probably alludes to both his on-ice capability, his sustained level of performance in this league, and also the way that he conducts himself off the ice as well. He sets a tone. He's a professional. He cares a lot. Maybe sometimes even to his own detriment, he really cares. And I'm sure at some point where he'll be able to look back on just a wonderful career in this league, and I'm sure he's still got a lot to achieve. But there's the Australian representation, but I think the biggest testament to him is just how he's seen by his peers, by the competitor base across the league, and the people within our club, for sure. And it was actually quite fitting. When I saw the graphic before the game and understood that he was going to break this record, all you want naturally is to see him go out there and deliver a strong start. There's probably a couple of goals there really that he would have had no chance on. But in the third period, and I know that we spoke about this during the game in our chat, he was absolutely massive. He was vintage Kimlin in the third period, just to make sure that we walked out of there with the right result. And I just thought that was fitting. It sort of just tied it all in quite nicely.
Yeah, I'll just say a couple of things there, Nathan. You introduced him to me at the Mustangs game, and I think I had a very quick chat with him, and afterwards I pulled you aside and I just said what a class human being that young man is. So, I echo my limited contact with Kimmer, just enormously impressed by him. But the third goal that the Rhinos scored was at the very start of the second period. So I think for pretty much 2 periods, he literally stood on his head. But he just played the angle so well. And I talked last week about, Hayden and his athleticism and how he throws himself around the crease. I'm going to show my age here, Dominic Hasek style. He's literally here, there and everywhere when he needs to be. Kimmer's game is very different. He just makes himself huge. He lets the puck hit his body. And he did that pretty much in that record-breaking start for 2 periods solid to see us home. So massive tip of the cap to Kimmer. He was, even though Nick scored a hat-trick, he was my star of the game, and I think wouldn't have been possible without his expertise, skill, and stewardship behind the boys seeing us home.
And as when you're looking at recruiting, and you've got a guy like Kimlin, I look at the AIHL standings, and teams with good local goaltenders, they're able to invest, use their imports in other areas, and it really helps them. Like if you have a look at the standings, out of the 6 teams in currently in finals positions, 4 of them have local goaltenders. What does that mean for you when you're recruiting, Nathan? When you know that, hey, in goals, we've got whether it's Kimlin, whether it's Downey, whether now it's Plymley. We've got some a level of comfort.
Yeah, we've had a huge competitive advantage, I think, in our goaltender stable. To have year on year such quality, it definitely allows you obviously to carry that extra skater import. It's very significant. I actually really don't like talking about this topic because when I think about it, I feel like we should have done a lot more with it. If I'm being brutally honest, when you go into a season with some of the tandems that we've had, without opening up our import quota, and years past it's been Kimlin, Downey, and even a year like this with Hayden, we really should have done more with it. But it's a luxury that not many teams are afforded, and it just gives you a lot more flexibility. It allows you to start a season with certainty in net, which not all teams have that capability. A lot of teams in the AI traditionally are probably going to market quite early to make sure that they've got their goaltending situation taken care of. So look, in short, it's been a huge boon for us. It's been a bit of a double-edged sword from the perspective of I feel like we haven't capitalised on that like we should have from a net results perspective. But look, whilst we've got it, we'll absolutely take it.
Yeah, excellent. Well, the weekend saw us get 6 points in a weekend for the first time this season. We've had 4 2-game weekends entering this weekend, and we had got 3 points, 3 points, 4 points, and 5 points. So we got the full 6, and both were technically on the road. So 2 big road wins. That brings us to the ladder. So Matt, do you want to take us through currently where we stand in the standings?
Yeah, North Stars still top of the table, 35 points from 16 games. Thunder hot on their heels. In second place, 30 points from 14 games. Dogs lost some ground. They're in third, 27 points, along with us. I think you mentioned last week, Gordy, we could have finished this weekend anywhere between 4th and 9th on the ladder, so happily we're 4th. Mustangs coming in 5th, 26 points from 17 games. The Brave lost a little bit of ground, 16 games, 24 points. Rhinos, 23 points from 19 games in 7th. Ice 8th, 22 points. Lightning 9th with 19 points. And the Adrenaline bringing up the rear with 7 points from 16 games.
So potential for some movement as well. We have another 2-game weekend this weekend. So we've got the Ice on Saturday. We have the Lightning on the Sunday. Let's have a look at those 2 games. Melbourne Ice, they've got Simone Dupre, who's come over, is having an impact, no doubt. We'll get a sense of rosters as they start to be finalised before finals. But the Melbourne Ice team that we faced last month, that we had that 4-1 win. It's I know I said it at the time during the commentary that this is not the Melbourne Ice team that we will see later this season, and due to suspensions and they've had new imports come across. They look like a very good team, and they've won 5 of their last 6 games. What are we expecting from this one?
I think this is going to be an absolute cracker. I think that historically, I've always enjoyed the Melbourne Ice games, just from sort of emotional energy. I think that the 2 teams, got a lot of very competitive leaders across both of their rosters. I almost feel like there's sort of this mini unofficial rivalry between us and the Ice. But look, I'm expecting that game last month. I think you're probably right. We did that game quite comfortably. What we will see on Saturday will be a very different looking Melbourne Ice. I'm expecting a lot of entertainment. I'm also expecting goals again, and really looking forward to this one. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think Kerry will have them up for the game, and if there wasn't an unofficial rivalry, there certainly probably is now that you've said that, Nathan. Just looking at the games over the weekend, fair amount of penalty minutes in them. I expect they'll be physical. So I think for me, I mentioned last week, I like it when the senior players, get on the front foot and throw the body a bit. I think that's probably going to be important. I suspect Kerry will tell his vets to get after our young kids, but it's going to be an exciting game, that's for sure. Hopefully a full house, and we can cheer the boys in.
Yeah, the Melbourne Ice coming into that game on the Sunday against the Adrenaline that had the worst power play in the league, and on the Sunday they turned that around. They scored 4 power play goals and they scored a shorthanded goal. So if they can get their special teams going, that's it's always going to be tough to beat a team that can convert on special teams. They've certainly got a good outfit. Jed Lake has he's continuing his breakout season. He's got 16 goals now, and he's been a fantastic local player for them.
Absolutely. I think Matt Caruana, he's probably one of my favourite players to watch across the league. Great leader by all accounts, and they've certainly got a lot of weapons at the top of their lineup. It'd be a very good goaltending battle as well. Regardless of who is in net for us, I think that'll be a really good goaltending battle. And it's a sellout as well, guys. This game is a sellout, so it should be a fantastic battle on Saturday. That's for sure.
Ishida went back to back in the 2 games for them at the weekend and put up some decent numbers. So I suspect we'll see him start to sharpen his game and show us what a great goalie he's been.
As Melbourne Ice are chasing a final spot, I think we're going to get a pretty heavy dose of Tatsunoshin Ishida in that. He's been so good for them over the last couple of seasons as an import goaltender. Well, on the Sunday, we will play the Brisbane Lightning for the 4th time this season. We've played them once at home and beat them. We beat them twice away, once in overtime and once in regulation. We play them again, and they've got Tanner Hops. He's got, 31 points in the last 5 games. This is a team that scores and is in a lot of high-scoring games. What are we expecting from this one?
There's always octane in these games. Brisbane, probably have that big 3. Campbell, Hebert, and Hops. These guys can do anything on their day. They can be very damaging. They have that speed and shot kind of approach. Hops loves to possess the puck, loves to carry it. Those guys will see a lot of ice time. But then they've got some really dangerous sort of support cast as well. Gendanov, Rapchuk. They've got some guys on the blue line that contribute as well. Dornbus in goal. I've always respected Dornbus's game. They will play 60 minutes as well, Brisbane. So we're going to have to be on our toes. Again, I know it's a cheap throwaway comment, but I'm really looking forward to these games as well. I said the same thing last week on the pod. I think both of these games are going to be very competitive. We're going to have to turn up, that is for sure. Melbourne Ice have got a lot to play for. Same with Brisbane, and they're going to be relentless. So we're going to have to be on.
Yep. A couple of big home games as well. Important to convert opportunities at home, and we can make some progression up the standings. We should be greedy for points at this stage naturally, and you look at the teams around us. Potentially you could overtake Perth. You could potentially overtake the Ice Dogs. But yeah, we'll see where we're headed and how we're situated at the end of the weekend. Any final thoughts, guys?
Well, we're 3-0 since the podcast started, so clearly we need to take a massive amount of credit for the win streak that we're on. In all seriousness, look, I think after the hard work the boys have done, and all 3 of those victories, Mustangs, Dogs, and Rhinos, they've been hard fought, and the boys have played well, but they've dug in, and they've had to fight for wins in all 3 of those games. 9th on the ladder. It's not going to be easy, but it will be a shame for us to not continue that run through those 2 games. And as you say, Gordy, we can pick up another 6 points here. That's a pretty handy win streak to be on, sort of mid-season, laying a foundation into the last couple of months of the year.
and we've played the Brisbane Lightning 3 times. We've used three different goaltenders, and each of them has got a win. So I don't know, Nathan, if you're busy, if you want to sign a fourth goaltender, see if we could if we can do four of a kind.
It's not at the top of my docket, but yeah, sure. Like, I'll talk to anyone, you know me.
John Chaker's dealing goalies like they're playing cards at the moment, Nathan. So give him a buzz.
No problem. I've got him on speed dial. Sorry, just back to Matt's point. In true AI style, we're at that midpoint. I mentioned before, we're getting to a stage now where rosters will be set very soon. This is always sort of that point of the season where you're almost laying sort of your second foundation and a canvas for what propels you into the second half. It's that stage of the season where you really want to be setting a tone in terms of what you take forward. And I think that's maybe one thing that I think we can take a lot of positives from the past weekend was, for large chunks of both of those games, we were relatively dominant, particularly on the Sunday. We showed that we can generate, a huge volume of quality opportunities. When we've got all of our guys rolling and we're skating well, I think we're starting to see what the potential of this team could be. We've got a great opportunity this weekend, another 2 games, take that momentum forward, take the good DNA out of it, lead with it this weekend. All of a sudden, we're sort of, we're creeping, the trajectories where we want it to be, and it's generally around this time when you start getting a true feel for what each respective team is going to look like, when it matters most, heading into, the bulk of July and August. So I'm very interested to see if we can keep up that that tenacity and the compete and energy levels, and even little 1%ers like on the Sunday. One thing that I noted, and this was just something I forgot to raise before, and for me, this is more just around attitude and application than anything else. But we had guys like Dex, Nick, Tommy Lander, going out to big time shooters like Danik Bouchard, and just putting everything on the line. These are the types of ingredients that we really need to carry forward. These are little details that I'll be looking for, over the next couple of weeks. Big opportunity here in front of us, I feel.
Yeah, and we'll see if we can continue the streak of, we've gone 4 games in a row of scoring the first goal within the first 100 seconds of the game. Nick Seitz has been involved in all 4 of those goals, and 3 is the goal scorer, and the last one as the assist on the Lucas Herman goal. We've certainly got the weapons. Nick Seitz, just side note, averaging 3.5 points a game, which would put him, I checked Elite Prospects earlier today, would put him tied 6 all time for AIHL point scorers, which is just a bonkers statistic. So let's see if he can continue his hot streak, and certainly we'll see the second and third line. They've been really effective as well over the last couple of weeks. I think just a final note for myself. A big shout out to everyone who's listened and downloaded and interacted and engaged with us on social media. The Sydney Bears have been kind enough to share some of our posts, and we've got some really good engagement. And some people have reached out and sent messages to us and given us good feedback. So we appreciate that. Thank you for your support. If there's things you'd like us to include, feel free to let us know. Leave a comment on one of our social media posts as well. Any final thoughts from you two gentlemen?
Did you want my dance for TikTok?
That's scary.
Isn't it?
It is.
Yours is coming next week, I've heard.
It's terrifying.
No, it's been a blast again.
I'm not saying I'd be any better, Matt. I'm not.
No, I'm the entree, you're the main course. It's been a blast again, boys, and I really enjoyed the games this weekend. And clearly we had some fun. It was, I've never typed so fast in my life in a WhatsApp group as I was swapping views and opinions and giving Gordy live updates. And but teamwork makes the dream work, doesn't it? So yeah, let's get another 6 this week, boys. Come on.
Absolutely. And I think just to extend on what you said before, Gordo, we've this is only the second podcast, but there's been so many messages and people referencing the pod on calls and things like that, which is absolutely awesome. We're doing our best, and every week I hope we'll have incremental gains and be better and better, and this thing will end up being a very polished performance collectively. I'm just lucky that I've got you two guys leading the way.
I'd like to do sort of a mailbag eventually each week where people can submit questions or ideas or whatnot. I know I'm going to be at the rink doing commentary live on site for the next 3 home games. Shoot us through some suggestions, or if you have any questions about things, and it doesn't matter whether you've been a fan for a week or whether you've been a fan for years. Just let us know any questions that you have.
Yeah. I'll be out in force with my fluffy mic, so just a warning to everyone entering Macquarie on the weekend.
Gordon, we've created a monster. He's got professional microphones, and we're gonna get him merched up at some point.
Yeah.
Nathan
Not a
Graham.
bad deal here.
Yeah, no, we look after him, mate. Didn't we?
Great opportunity.
It's he's been listening to the commentary in the end of financial year sale at Bingley.
Bingley, yeah.
So
Yeah, people getting to Bingley. There's a lot of great
Yep.
deals in there, and they're great supporters of the club.
So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you everyone. Thank you gentlemen for your time. We will see you next week. Until then, thank you for your support. Give us a follow on Facebook and Instagram, the Beers and Bears podcast, and we'll see you next week.